Christine was driving for Fred, going down pit lane with smoke pouring out the back. I would be used, I won this. And so we cruised around for the next few laps, won the race, and actually won it in record time. Not that it only had won 500 before that, the year before. And with that pit stop, loss of 5 laps, and then getting back up there, we still beat the year before's race record by over a minute.
Wow.
It shows you how quick the car was going those last 30 or 40 laps. And we won that, which was a huge boost for everybody to win that one under those circumstances. And so that was one. That was a one, I'll just tell you one more, I'll pass over to a few questions if there's any, and if not, I'll get Philip back up here. That was Bathurst 82, Gary Scott. That's right, he was my car driver. I got in the last stop, and the last stop was that stop you do when you just have to come in for a quick top up of fuel because you've already had 3 full tankfuls, but you can't make it to the finish on the third tank, so you've got to come in and take on off for about 15 or 20 laps, which was the same for everybody with a V8 car. So I came in for my last stop. I didn't have a drink, the drink had run out, and I'm calling for a drink. And no one's sort of taking any notice of me because we didn't carry water and we didn't have suits to protect with water going through them to cool you. Didn't have anything like that, didn't have automatic thing where you just press a button on the steering and get a drink in your mouth. Nothing like that. In those days you carried the drink yourself and put a plastic hose in, and there was none of that in this car. And I hadn't worried about it before this stage in the race, but at this stage I was pretty well buggered. I was thirsty, and I went for the water, and nothing. So anyway, I've got to come in for the stop sign, so I'll get some water when I come in first. So I come in, they're putting a little amount of fuel in, and I've got a couple of tyres on it, and I'm saying, water, I need water. And Martin finally wakes up, he wants water. So I've got this can which had some floor with it, and then they couldn't find a plastic tube. So they've had a bit of the can, so hang on, I'll get a tube for you. So he delves in the toolbox, sees this tube, oh that must be it, and gives it to me, off I go. It's all in my lap. So we get out, second gear, off we go, second, third, out on the back straight, third gear. I've got the can between my legs, I get the plastic hose, put it in the mouth, pour it from the tube, put it down into the can, and push it down so it's on the bottom. Right, I've got that, so I take a swig of this stuff, and another swig. Oh, that's fine, except then I thought, I tasted awful. It tasted bloody. I didn't know what it was at first. Turns out it was brake fluid. It wasn't enough fluid in it, but it was brake fluid in the hose. So as I stacked up the fluid, the first thing I got was a mouthful of brake fluid and this other stuff, whatever that was. In fact, someone said later it was the stuff that Bevo used to mix up for Peter. There's some potion that they used to do on the witch's hat on. And I got the mouthful of it. I tell you what, I was actually pretty much, I wasn't physically about to collapse, I think, because I was fit enough to do the long race. But I hadn't had a drink, I hadn't had enough fluid, then I've got the mouthful of this, and I started feeling sick. And the problem was, right behind me is a Mazda RX-7, not without a knob in it, it's the second car, with a Japanese driver. And where I'm in third place, he wants third place, and I want third place. I want to keep third place, and he wants to get third place. So rather than having a cruise to the end, I've got a real job on my hands to stay in front of this Japanese bloke. And I was quick at him on the straight so he could catch me around the bend and under brake, because obviously he's lighter and I'm heavier at the speed and so on. And so it was really close for most of the laps. I I'll get away from what I said, but in the meantime, while I'm doing that, I know I'm going downhill. I'm going downhill so bad that I'm nearly vomiting, but I don't want to do that. And I want to stay in third place. And the laps just seem to be so slow. And I'm waiting for the pit board to see how many laps I've got to go, which I already knew, but I thought it might have changed. And I look at that, I took a still 10 to go. 9, I'm counting down. I'm really getting bad, but I was determined to hang on. So I did. We finished third, which was terrific. And then drove up the back, and they have the flag where you drive in the back of the pits there, come down, and then they direct you around if you're in the 1, 2, 3, and you get out and you go up on the podium. So I go down into Park Ferme. One of the ladies from our RBC was there, and as I stepped out, I was exhausted. I was about to pass out. And she said, John, would you mind just shifting it over there? I said, I forget her name, I didn't know her name. I just can't, I'm sorry, and I just walked off. So we'll go down to the caravan, go in the pits and get a drink. So I made it down there, threw my helmet onto one of the bunks, I opened the fridge, sure enough, it's empty. So I take everything down to the pits. That's as far as I got, I just passed out. And I think the next thing I remember, Beverly was there, but they couldn't find me for the podium. Everyone took it going over the PA for me to go over the podium, blah, 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 you're in third place. And I passed out by this stage. So when it was all over the podium, people were still looking for me, starting to get worried. So Beverly must have come in the caravan for some reason, thinking maybe I was there, I don't know why, but I was there. And so he tried to wake me up, and I said, I couldn't talk. A drink, yes, I was like, I could have a drink. So she got me a drink, and then somebody else came in and Bev just said, go and get a doctor. And so after about half an hour of, they rubbed me down, and people like the doctor had a chat with me, they give me a drink slowly. And after about half an hour I sort of got up and sat on the side of the bank. I said, I'm the doctor. No, let the doctor get up. You're not allowed to get up, then you can't go anywhere. Anyway, within an hour or so I'd recovered enough to get up and walk around, but boy, I'll never forget that. I won't recommend you ever drink of break for it. It's not good for you.
Did the doctor have to bleed you?
Sorry?
Did the doctor have to bleed you?
No, he didn't. None of you had to. He didn't. Huh?
Did it stop at any time?
Yeah, that's right. Look, I don't want to take up all your time. I know Philip's got some other things on the agenda, but maybe there's a couple of questions, or if there isn't, we'll just pass back over the floor. No questions? Hang on, yes.
From a pure driving enjoyment perspective, the motivation for all of this?
Open worders every day of the week. I regretted it when I had to go to, two goes. I went to two goes because single seasons were falling off in popularity, and there weren't the teams around anymore, and it was clear that the direction of motorsport was taking this country was touring goes. And all of us that drove them would say the same thing.
Was the big accident you had that time?
No, not at all. I knew that was always off the cards, we all knew that, but if you survived it, which I did, just get as fit as you can, as quick as you can, and get back into it, which I did. And I had a lot of success after that too, in different circuits around the country. So, yeah.
John, with the open-wheel drivers you ran against, who would you consider the best for you or whatever? Man,
No question, Frank Match.
Now, who only passed away a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah.
No, but he was mainly sports cars.
No, open-wheelers.
Okay.
He drove the Tasman series, Brabhams with Climax engines with V8s. He's sports cars. I raced against him once in the sports cars, which he built himself. I mean, Frank was a manufacturer. He built the cars himself. When he did Formula 5000, he had an M10V McLaren. He was an advisor to Bruce, Bruce wanted his feedback because he knew Frank was a brilliant engineer, constructor, he built his own cars. He knew what he was doing. He was a bloody good driver.
So, as a driver, I mean, you consider him probably the best in Australia?
He was the best. Yeah. He won the most races. He won. I mean, Jim Clark once at Lakeside in Queensland was in the Tasman series. He was going around, he was leading the race. Frank had been right behind him. I mean, that far behind him. At Lakeside, of all places. And Frank had cause to pull into pits. Whatever it was, they fixed it. Whether it was electrical or fuel, I can't remember. And so, as Frank pulled out onto the track, he got the flag to go, he went back out on the track, and Jim Clark had just driven past. Jim spotted him. So Jim slowed up, because Jim had a big lead, let Frank catch up, and they had a dice from there till the end of the race. And they asked him why he did that at the end of the race. He said, I enjoy driving against Frank because he's one of the best drivers in this country, if not the world. Very good. So that was a pretty good accolade from Jim.
So between the Australian and New Zealand open wheel drivers at that time, particularly the Tasman series, was there much of a difference between those two country drivers?
Yeah, there was. Well, no, not a great difference. No, not a great difference, but there was about 3 drivers, or 4 drivers that won the Tasman series from New Zealand against one Australian. But, things change, things are different in different years and things happen. It wasn't the Australian drivers were that much worse than the New Zealanders. It was about, 50-50. We're as good as them, but, they just, actually they had more success in the 4 to 5,000 days. In the 2.5 litre days, there was nothing in it. So, but, the Europeans, they stood out because they had more racing and they had better equipment and they were just better. They just accepted they were better. I mean, I was sponsored by shows where Graham Hill and Toki Stewart, the Bowrins, we shared the same tent. Graham Hill was the sort of spokesperson for the Formula 1 people because he had a personality, and they all looked up to him. And he could make a speech like nobody else. And, so they all hung around Graham, and Graham was their spokesperson. So they would congregate around the shelter. They always up there to speak with Graham for whatever it was, and Toki, and so on. And I got to know them all and spent a lot of time with them because they were all in the tent that I was in, the shelter. And it's very memorable, when you think about those sort of people that used to come out here every year.
Well, I guess the thing that was amazing to me is that if you look at what's happening with Formula 1 right now, probably in the last 10 or 20 years, it's absolutely impossible to have a series like that where those guys would come out to Australia and New Zealand now. And that's what we had back in the 60s, which is just an amazing situation. For a guy like yourself who came there to run against somebody was just amazing.
And it was absolutely sensational and probably hard to, for most people these days, to touring campaigns because we don't have any open wheel racing or nothing to speak of anymore. And the same in New Zealand, but those Tasman series races in both New Zealand and Australia used to pull huge crowds. And it was really a fascinating period.
Were you able to tell when you did Sports Sedan, which was pretty competitive Sports Sedan racing last week, when you ran the Bob Jones Run, and I guess also your HCT stuff, were you able to compare drivers in that era to drivers in the Formula 1 that you were doing? I mean, more because the cars were so different, you couldn't compare?
No. There was the talent just wasn't there. It wasn't the same talent as the Formula 1 car. I mean, I rode plenty of touring cars and sports sedans and stuff, and they were exciting to drive in some cases. Some were powerful, and that Toronto had about a rip over there. That was power to weight was sensational. Had a solid rear axle, which was a pain in the neck. We could never get tyres to work properly. Well, not never, we did eventually. But I won some races with that guy. But it just wasn't the same as a single-seater. Now, the single-seater is built for one purpose. That's to win a race. The Tirana is built to go 4 passengers around with luggage. And a box trailer, you get some person in it, and it goes to some young lady that flying one side up the place. These were Formula One cars, and they had a tremendous power to weight ratio. They were so fast because they were so light. And they had open wheels, no mudguards, no touching wheels and putting your wheels in the wrong place in those cars. And a lot of guys paid the price for it. And so it was a real challenge to drive. But it was so rewarding when you won. It was worth the risk. I never had the same 30 or 2.
Yeah, right. The other Australian wheel driver, as an outsider, that I always admired was Kevin Bartlett. Yeah.
Well,
what's your thinking or feeling about Kevin as a driver?
Well, apart from frankly, he was the next best. And I only took, Kevin doesn't like this, and I told him so, but him and I are very good mates, we're very good friends, have been for years. We visited him in Queensland every couple of years. He's been down to our place a few times, but he was as good as Frank, but not quite as skilled as an engineer. And but Kevin was up there the best of them. Max Stewart was good. Neil Allen, he was good. He was very fast. Occasionally he just got it wrong. I mean, he did. He was going fast. He had some big accidents in Blackpool all the way. Well, he didn't walk away with all, but a couple of did. And he was very lucky. A lovely bloke and Lewis. There was a few others, but Frank and Kevin, I mixed it with them. But, and in the sports cars, I mixed it. Well, I only raced against Frank Reedy once. We were ready to take him on, but it just didn't work out in the end. But anyway.
Okay, probably an obvious one that I'm going to ask you is your favourite touring car driver, apart from yourself. The acid on now, mate.
Oh,
And when I say favourite, that may not mean the best.
I know what
But then again,
I know what to say. I know what to say. Look,
Best one you
to
saw.
be honest, sorry.
Best
Why
touring
not?
car driver you saw. That's it.
Them saying the best touring car driver you saw as an athlete.
Yeah.
Well, there was a few good ones in Europe. There was a few good ones in Europe, in the BMW team. I can't remember all the names right now, but they were very, very, very good. But if you talk about Australia, that's where we all come from. That's what we're talking about, I guess. You can't go against Peter. There's no question about that. You know, everyone gave him a hard time from time to time at various races, but somehow, you know, in the 60s and 70s, he just put it together every year at battles. And in those days, I used to drive up there with him to and from the circuit before the days when we used to fly. And I mean, you know, in the early days when we were doing the touring car championship around the country, I mean, now they have their own rooms and suites or whatever, and then the mechanics might share a couple of rooms, and then there's the team manager and the team advisor and the team something over else. Well, there was 2 drivers. We used to sleep in the same double room, and we had a room for 6 blokes for the mechanics, and they'd all sleep in the one room. We'd all eat together, do all those things, and Peter was part of that team, and we enjoyed his company, and he enjoyed ours. You know, he was good to race with, and he was certainly a good driver. But you can't. And there were some other good drivers too, who had their wins from time to time. Bobby Morris.
What about that Canadian guy? What was his name? And where did you
I was
race?
thinking Holden drivers just then, but yeah, Moffat was really very good driver.
What about Pete Dagan, John?
Pete was the best.
Did you get it?
Absolute.
I know you're way out there, but just hang on. She said Pete Gagan.
Yeah, Pete Dagan was the best.
Bruce Burr, who you would know of.
Yes.
And Bruce considered the 2 best drivers, touring car drivers he ever saw were Pete Gagan and Peter Brock.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, Peter would come first, of course, but, Peter, no question about it.
Sorry.
What's going on? Oh,
All
yeah.
right, just a quick one. The Washington Legends for Motorsport quite a few weeks back, and they had Dick Johnson driving Peter's Strum, the A9X. Have you had the opportunity to drive a Falcon to say in comparison?
Did you want it?
I've driven a few Falcons, I wouldn't want to drive the rest of them, no. Seriously,
Are they only fun to ride?
nah, no, that's right.
Dick
I've
was
driven
complaining about how
Bob
fun they had.
Jones, I've driven Bob Jones Camaro,
Yeah.
had a 7-litre engine.
Yeah,
But like Dick was saying how easy you guys had it compared to him, because his Falcon
Oh,
was
that's
right. Is that a load of
Yes.
crap?
Don't listen to Reggie.
Yeah, well, I'm saying, that's why the question's been asked in the race. Yeah.
Look, it wasn't, I mean, when I was doing that, with Peter in the early 70s, late 60s and even the early 70s, sorry, 80s, Dick was still crashing every race in practice. Nobody, the thing that made Dick Johnson was a crash going up the mountain when he hit a so-called rock and some person was supposed to throw him over, which is the greatest and he got millions or thousands of dollars donated over the TV. He was crying about his car, you know. Lots of people have done that in the past and got nothing. Apart from the repair bills from that thing.
Yeah, John, you
Don't
mentioned,
start me on him, but Dick Johnson.
you mentioned on the teams of today. What are your thoughts on V8 supercars today as they stand?
I'm the wrong person to ask. I don't watch them. If they're on TV, I watch them. We don't have Fox, I don't care about having Fox. Now they're on Fox and I don't see them, I don't care. Because the last time I saw them wasn't all that flash, I didn't think. There's a couple, I like some of the drivers at the front end that are good. The odd one in between times, you see the bloke's got talent, he's got a car, that's fine, but I don't like the format. The pit stops bore me. And I just think they've lost the plot. Yeah.
Out of the HDT road cars, what was your pick? What was your favourite one out of all HDT road cars? Was there
Look, I didn't have a favourite one. You couldn't. To me, one was the same as the other. It was a lot of work, a lot of planning went into it, production, a whole lot of issues. Dealers ringing, wanting their car because the customer paid the money because the car was, 3 or 4 cars had been built before his. Settle him, pressure from home sometimes for issues and things like that. And so I never really had a chance to get to a favourite. I used to do some road testing with Peter. We took Sheriff. Just remind me another story. It wasn't long after we got there. Peter had a section of, I'll get back to your question. Got back, had a section of road around the back of the airport, Melbourne, where he tested cars. And Peter must have thought everyone that drove one of his cars wanted to try and win battles. Because he used to test them to the point where they've got hard suspension in them. So they had plenty of grip and all this sort of stuff. He used to go around the same route. And Peter would be doing 100 miles an hour anywhere he could go. And around this particular route he was going fairly quick. And we used to get the local rag, covered the area where this so-called test track was it is. And there was one of the guys pointed out a letter in this local paper, which was from a little old lady that lived around on this street, which had a long curve, and she was on the curve. And she complained to the council that they should get the police because there was a maniac. He used to go past her place sometimes. She got over 100 miles an hour. I reckon I would have been conservative. And, but she would never able to get the number of the car. I said to Peter, mate, you've been found out. I said, read this. That could be anybody else. Come on. Tell somebody else that, not me. I said, mate, seriously, I mean, you've got to find another red because she writes another letter, she might have written one to the police force, the local police station, I went down there. Yeah, good points, Brockys. Yeah, very good points. Sorry. What were you saying?
Yeah, John. Just wondering if you had a preferred or favourite track or circuit.
I've raced on a lot. Always preferred the fast ones. So Australia has to say Bathurst. I love Sandown. Phillip Island particularly, got to be number 2. Sandown. Longford Granny did a few races on. I did 2 echo races there, a couple of them. A couple of Tasman Series races there. It's down the list a bit. It was very scary, but it was exciting nevertheless. Of course, I did a couple in the rain. That was really, it wasn't about the drive in the rain, it was a bit scary. In Europe, though, Spa was the best. Honda was pretty good. But Spa was up there first. So, just a few favourites there. But Bathurst certainly in Australia, particularly the top half. I mean, the top half is the exciting part. Conrod Straight's boring. Well, that's okay, but I mean, you're just going straight. There's nothing really to get excited about. Back Straight's straight. Pit Straight's straight. But across the top of the mountain, from, turn 2 all the way up the hill around there through the carting up the Esses, across the top and down, that's good. I know now that they've taken the dipper out, or it's there, but it's not a dipper anymore. And that would be good, because you go around there, I see the Ferraris, the Porsche, the sports cars, they go down there pretty quick now. Which is the reason they smoothed it out, I guess. So I'd like to have a go on it now with that. That'll be really fast.
John, didn't you also win another Bathurst before 83? I think you knocked off Bobby Morris and didn't get recognised for it at the time?
Oh, yeah, that's correct. Well, actually, yes. We were in the lead. Colin Bond and I, 76 it was. We led the race.
That's your number, Slow.
Yeah, right. We led the race, and Bob Morris made a long stop. He had a problem with the differential. The oil was overheating. Well, the oil doesn't overheat by itself, just something caused it to overheat. So something was going wrong in the differential, and it overheated, and they had to do something about it. So they jacked it up high, so the oil would run down forward toward the pinion. They took the filter cap off the back, but it built up pressure on there. It just blew out when they took it off, and blew all what oil was left in it blew out. So then they had the problem putting some oil back in it. And what you need to do with the dip's red hot and boiling, you need to be able to put hot oil in it. So you could put cold oil in it. But that's all they had, so they were trying to dribble it in boiling as soon as they put it in the red hot dip. So they were trying to dribble it in, so it took a long time to get enough in. At the same time, Colin was driving the car toward the end, our car, and in those days, with the Toronto, we just had the normal standard V-belt drive fan belt on those little pressed tin pulleys. And they weren't all that accurate, but on a race car, it was a pain in the neck. So anyway, I just flicked the fan belt off on Colin, which was no problem when you're out there on the track, travelling at speed, because the airflow does the job. But on the slower corners, okay, the fan works, but that's a bit of a problem. To get through the race, I think we had about 20 laps to go, and it was probably unlikely we were going to make it, so he's coming to the pits. But Harry didn't mind at the time, because Harry said he put a belt on. We didn't have a fan. We didn't have a fan, we just had the belt to drive the pump and the alternator. So in it comes, and what does somebody do? One of the team just grabs the grabs the radiator cap and takes it off, and just blew all the water out under pressure. So instead of having to just top it up, we've now got to fill up the whole water system. It's all been blown out. And we only got cold water. You don't have hot water in the pits. You wouldn't have enough anyway to fill up a car that's empty. So we're dribbling water in it slowly, and time's ticking away. But we were a lap ahead of them. We knew that. We had it on the lap score sheet. And of 4 other people besides had it. We said, okay, we'll lap it. And Harry said, just take it easy. We don't have to fill it up. We'll get a part full, that'll do. And it'll do the last 5, 6 or 8 laps, whatever it was. So that's what happened. And so we get to finish, and we think we're going to get the checkered flag. Our car goes past, and Harry said, oh, there must be one more lap to go. And then, what's his name comes around?
Bob Norris.
Yeah, Morris in the Ron Hodson car. That's the checkered flag. What's going on here? So, cut a long story short, the team didn't actually protest, but they wanted to see the steward, and just to show them our lap chart shows that we had won. And we had a lap chart on Bob Morris that showed he was in a lap in. And there must have been some confusion with the lap scores when Bob Morris pulled out the pits and given them the lap. So they said, oh, we'll have to check that. And they did, which took about an hour or two, because they had to do it accurate. There's a lot of stuff to go through. It was all handwritten in those days. And so eventually they came back, and I don't know who they came back to. The 2 people went in there to make the comment whether it showed them the error. I don't know who they were. It certainly wasn't Harry, because he got the cramps. How dare they do that, you know, and just walked out. So someone from Holden and someone else, I don't know who they were, but they were representing. They come back at about 10 o'clock at night and said, this is important, what they said. We've checked the lap score, you are right, you have won the race, what do you want us to do about it? Which is a very odd thing to say. The thing was, that was the weekend that Bob Morris had that differential problem. Smoke coming out of the car, they got it out of him, and it was running at a reasonable speed, but it wasn't on the pace, wasn't on a winning pace. But they thought they had a lap up him, and so did everybody else, because that's what the commentators were saying. Bob Morris was leading the race. And John Fitzpatrick was driving his car, John Fitzpatrick, Fitzpatrick was leading the race. Will it get to the finish before it has this problem again? And the commentator said, it's going a bit slower, John. You know, we've probably got John Morris, what's the name, his life story about how wonderful he was and what he won in Europe and blah, 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 which that's all fine. And yes, Colin Bond's definitely we think Colin might make it now, we're not sure. But it's going to be a close finish, rallying up the crowd. But what happened out there was people ring up their friends and say, have you been watching Bathurst? No. Well, there's got this great drama, and there's 2 cars and blah, blah, blah. We should watch it, it's going to be a terrific finish, you know. And they had ways of recording from that point on when this issue to replace the rating went up like this. And so they played for all they could to TV people. And anyway, as I said, the protest came in, they said, what do you want us to do about it? So the 2 people representing an old thought, nothing we can do, we can't, not senior enough to make a decision. So they rang, I went downstairs and they rang John Bagshore, who was the sales and marketing director for Holden. He'd been at the meeting, he lived in Sydney, so he'd flown home in a light aircraft, landed at Mascot, and drove home to up on the beaches, the northern beaches area somewhere where he lived. And he flew home by 9 o'clock. The phone call came through at about 10 or 10:15 or something like that. And the 2 guys from Holden said, well, this is what's happened, and they've said, yes, we've won the race, but what do you want us to do about it? So it was basically Bagshore's decision. And see that the car owned by Bob Morris was owned by one of Sydney's biggest Holden dealers, Ron Hodson. And, Bagsshore had to weigh up to his, it's going to be crushing for Ron Hodson to have won the race and Holden take it off him. And he reasoned, well, it was 2 Holdens, so the first and second. If I change this finish, we're still going to be first and second. Who cares? Okay, leave it the way it is. And that was that. So nothing was ever said about it, no one knew about it. And I didn't even know about it for about 3 or 4 weeks later. And I called into the workshop one day and for lunch, which I used to do from time to time on the rounds. Sat down, Harry was out and, you know, his brother, what's his face, was out. And we're sitting down talking around lunch and something came up about Bathurst. I said, yeah. I said, oh, sure, we were in front. You know, absolutely, and so was Colin. And the boys said, you were. Then they told me the story. And they said, so don't tell anybody, it's, you know, we shouldn't be telling you all people. I said, oh, that's okay. Anyway, many years later, I was writing that book with Bill Toki. He asked me a question. I once said he'd asked me a million questions about all sorts of things, and he just said, you know, you must be really peed off with your career, all the things you've done and won and blah, 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 and you'd never won Bathurst. I said, well, as a matter of fact, Bill, I had actually won in 80, whatever it was, 70, whatever it was, and he said, I didn't know about that, so I told him the story. So I figured it out. It was in print. Gradually great controversy, and but I got the message out that Colin and I had won. And
You're right.
I saw Colin a little while after that, which was years after the event, and Colin said, I never had a clue that we won the race. He never even in the head. I just thought, well, Bob must have won it. We were second. I said, no. I said, I thought they would have told you. I would have told you the boys. I never had an idea. You didn't know anything about it.
Well, John, it was redeemed in 1983.
What was that?
It was redeemed in 1983.
Yeah, that's true.
Which brings me to a question. Your thoughts about, yeah, you better have a drink on this one.
You go on.
Your thoughts about Larry Perkins? This is the last question, by the way, but I thought it'd be a fitting end to this great question.
Well, put it this way, Larry had his good days and his bad days. I'm not talking about behind the wheel of a racing car. I'm talking about trying to wheel and deal with him. And I'm talking about when he worked with us as team manager. He just had his way of doing things, but on the good side of things, he was a very, very smart engineer, very smart. And he worked with Ron Tornak at Brockys. He knew all about racing cars, and he and Ron got along like a house on fire. They were on the same wavelength, both very smart, intelligent blokes that knew exactly what they were doing in every way, shape and form with racing cars. And that extended in Larry's case to touring cars. He was good at setting them up. He didn't suffer fools gladly. And I'll tell you one little story, I'll never forget it. He was jealous and protected the team like you wouldn't believe. And when I say jealous, he was strong in looking after the team. And particularly at Bathurst. And he was always shooing people out of the garage if they wanted in, media people, with friends and a girlfriend or something, and somebody running a gang. He kicked them out unceremoniously and tell them not to come back. This is a race garage, we're preparing race cars, and I don't want to hear anything else or have anything else going on here, right? So everyone knew where they stood with Larry, except in some cases it was different. I'll never forget, he was out of the garage area at one stage. In fact, when we had a garage up the back, we had one of those the first garage, proper garage built 50 feet out of sponsorship from made tin shed somewhere, and they built one at the garage on our plot, painted in Marlborough colours. Anyway, one of the cars or two of the cars in there, and Larry was maybe down the street doing or whatever. And in the meantime, one of the people from Oldham brings up a group of people, including the managing director of Oldham, Chuck Chapman, and a couple of the directors, and a couple of the other heavies from Oldham. And they just walk up to the front of the garage and look in, and someone recognised them in there. I forget who it was, adjectives he used, but you can just imagine. What the bloody hell do you think you so-and-so, such and such, what people doing it here? This is a race team workshop. We've got a race to win this weekend. We don't want wankers like you. Just get out of here. God. I said, Larry, do you know Toki's the manager cricket? I don't get up bloody. I there. I said, well, he didn't come in unannounced. Somebody invited you. Heard it. You? I said, no, I didn't. I would have, but I didn't. Somebody else did. Well, he's got no right to be here. No, he'll live to regret that one day. Anyway, that was that. Jeez, I was so embarrassed. I went down to see Chuck, and he was a lovely man. He said, look, I understand. He said, at these visits, that's what he's doing this weekend. He said, I didn't take any offence. I said, oh, Jesus. I wanted to smack him in the mouth. But anyway, he handled pretty well, and, but that's the way Larry was. It didn't matter who he was dealing with, you always knew where you stood. And when he had a fallout with Peter, he left HDT, when we were down at Port Melbourne, and I forget what the dispute was about, but anyway, he walked out, and that was terrible. I mean, he gave a little bit of notice, like about 10 minutes or something. But he'd left some stuff behind, which I didn't know about. And so about 3 or 4 days later, the phone rings in my office, and John, I thought you'd like to know Larry's in his office. I said, what's he doing? He said, he's going through all the drawers. I said, I'll be down in a minute. So I go down there, and I said, walked in, Larry, what the hell are you doing here? You walked out of here on last Thursday, whatever it was. He said, yeah, well, I left a few things. I said, well, that's shit. Because you walked out, anything that's in his office is owned by this company, and that ain't you. So you better. So, and you get, I could see his eyes, you get a bit cranky, and I thought I'll be ready for it, but I wasn't. Next thing I know, pop, I'm down, he picked me, knocked me over the desk, which I was sitting on like this, I was standing in front of him, down I went. I was trying to get up there to shot at him, he grabbed the file that he wanted, he must have enough time to know what it was, he just grabbed it, and was out of the place, under the mile an hour, into his car, and gone. Anyway. That got sorted out. We could have got the police on him, but we didn't. And got sorted out. But another thing that happened was Larry was he had the Monday off. That's right. Sorry, which day was it?
Monday.
He had a day off. And I think which day it was. But anyway, he had a day off. He had a place up at Monaghan? Yeah, Monaghan. And just there was an airport, a private airport, and Larry was a flyer, as you probably all know. He had his plane parked up there. Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry, He had his plane parked there at Monaghan Airport. So he got caught speeding going along the tunnel behind the tunnel freeway, and the copper reckons he recognised Larry knew Larry, and he recognised him. And Larry knew he'd been caught, so he, instead of stopping, he just kept going. So the cops gave him chase. He turned right on that street, that road that runs up to Monaghan Airport. It's a few long, straight stretches. And he just opened up the car and was going full speed, and they were a long way back. Anyway, finally, he got to Monaghan, and I knew where he'd gone, as it turned out later on. He turned into the airport and ran down and parked his car behind the hangars or whatever, and the cops, they didn't know that he flew aeroplanes, so they didn't even think to look in there. So they couldn't find him, but they got the number. And of course they read the number through the computers and, HD2. It's Peter Brock. So the word goes out to the press that Peter Brock driving his car at 150 mile an hour on the Tullamarine freeway just behind the airport. And the next thing, the phone started ringing. The girls were saying, the phones are ringing, there's newspapers ringing as well. Pick up the phone, what's going to do for it? Peter Brockys has been clocked at 150 mile an hour on the Tullamarine Freeway. I said, that's impossible. Why is that? I said, he left on a flight yesterday for London. I said, I took him out of the airport. Oh, it didn't matter. The headline's still went in the newspaper from all the papers. I kept telling him the same story, no one could scrap a notice. And so anyway, it was Larry, his day off, and he was going out that way towards the airport. And so anyway, cut a long story short, they accepted that obviously wasn't Peter, he'd gone to Europe and they could prove it. And so then they realised who it was, because one of the coppers said, the police officer said, I recognised him. And he wasn't that difficult to recognise with the stars. But then Larry shows up the next day, he hasn't got a moustache. And I'm telling you, so word got out, and Larry knew anyway because he'd been chased. And so we all ended up in court, I ended up in court, and Larry ended up in court. Anyway, he got charged, he couldn't get out of it, and I had a witness who identified him, but the bloke said he identified him by his moustache. Larry said he didn't have a moustache because he'd shaved it off, and when the police come to interview him and talk to him about it, he didn't have a moustache. And so in cross-examination, they were asked, did Larry have a moustache the day after that incident when you spoke to him? No, he didn't. And so it was obviously established also that he could have shaved it off, but that was just what he was trying to do, get out of it. But in the end, I got up to give evidence, and I just answered the questions that I had asked, and I answered them honestly. And afterwards, the judge called me an unreliable witness. I said, hang on, I didn't say that, but I'm thinking, I answered the questions correctly, honestly. If you'd have asked the question a bit different, I would have answered it with the answer that he wanted, but I just answered what he asked me. In some cases, yes or no, or I don't know, or how could I wasn't there, whatever it was. And so they gave him a huge fine, loss of licence for about 12 months. And the stubborn bugger that he was, he keeps driving his yellow ute at it when he had the, and he got picked up again, so they gave him a crack on the knuckles and another further extension. Anyway, eventually got over it and got his licence back, and I think he was a stubborn bugger sometimes, and fancy travelling in front of the police. But the trick that he had was at the airport, he didn't know unless he realised where he'd gone.
Suppose we talk about 1993.
No, I do talk about 1983. I said you had redemption in 1983. You got Bathurst. Then I said, how do you feel about Larry Bird? Because that was 2 hours ago. You had a fag, right? And we was, can I thank you, John?
Well, I hope thank you.
Fantastic. Yeah, great listening. An absolute legend of Australian motorsport in various ways. Fantastic. Yeah, great listening. An absolute legend of Australian motorsport in various ways.